You might be throwing away your leads if you're not utilizing these 5 rental strategies to help you make more money on your wholesale or buying business. We are using these 5 exit strategies on every evaluation we do, whether it's a cash or a creative finance transaction. When you're looking at deals, I want to make sure that you're utilizing these strategies. My name is Justin Pickell, or Pickell, and I've been doing wholesaling for the past 3 years, and I've completed over 150 transactions. And stay till the end so you can also have our special tool that we use to store this info and organize it on every deal. On these long-term rental deals, like the ways you can find them, which I'm sure you know of, are Rentcast, Zillow, Rentometer, Realtor.com. You might be paying for some subscriptions, like PropStream, Batch Leads, or different things that can provide this info to you. With these providers, they might provide you an estimate rent, or they might be actually providing you sales comps or for sale currently comps of rentals in the area. It would be your job to actually do a true evaluation of these rental comps and not just getting an estimate to see, okay, my subject property is a 3-bed, 2-bath, 1,500 square feet. And then I'm seeing there's some other ones in the area the same size renting for 1,500, 2,000 for one of them. One's even renting for 2,500. But they're all the same size bed and baths. What could be the potential difference? So you got to see what's going on in the potential neighborhood. Is it a different school district? Or like the actual updates in the house. So understanding, looking at photos could be very important if you could find the listing on those rentals as well. And if you have the photos on your property, you can get the truest comparison on every single rental and your personal property. All right, well, maybe mine might be 1,800. It's in between the looks of the 2,000 rent and the 1,500 one. So I'm gonna meet in the middle. So now that you're utilizing this long-term rental strategy, you need to actually also look at other strategies like Section 8, which is very similar to long-term rental. It doesn't pay much more, but they do pay a little bit more sometimes. You don't have to worry about so many evictions because they're getting their rent paid for by the government or the city, who have a fund where people are getting vouchers and approvals to get their rent paid for. So it's our job as investors to put more of these Section 8 rentals out to help people who are having difficulty with income and growth. With dealing with Section 8, it's a little bit different than just a long-term rental because the city or wherever you're personally at is going to require an inspection. And this inspection is a little more serious than a regular rental inspection and happens every year. So you're going to have to follow the exact code depending on your location and area. Maybe find another flipper in your area or a rental investor or Section 8 inspector to advise you on what you need to do to this property if you're buying it. But as a wholesaler, you can definitely look into the general code as a nationwide basis and see, all right, well, if my investor did this strategy, it would cost them this much to fix up for a Section 8, but for a long-term rental, it wouldn't cost them anything. They could just rent it out day one. You have to compare your different options to see, is this increase in rent going to make me more money? Now that you're using these potential 2 most important strategies, if you want stability and safety long-term, everyone wants a home to live in long-term, but there are some other strategies where you could make some more money, but aren't as stable and consistent as someone living there every single day. So the next strategy I'd make sure you're utilizing in every single deal is Airbnb. You really need to consider the location on where you want to do this. Other than long-term rental and Section 8, that can be done almost anywhere. But Airbnb is going to come down to, is it a traveling location? Is it near a beach, water, some amusements, or a consistent place where people want to travel to, like stadiums, some colleges, or different things where people want to go travel to all the time? You want to find a niche that you would be able to rent these out to as an Airbnb. But me as a wholesaler, I'm trying to think of it as many different perspectives as possible. We have to think outside the box as a generalist to provide these deals to specialist buyers who want to make sure they're getting the best deal for making money long term. Airbnb is a shorter term investment, like it might be them only keeping it for 3, 5, 7 years, or who knows, depending on the market that they're in. It could be in Florida, it could be in Michigan. I've seen people do deals in Detroit versus in a phenomenal area like Florida where a lot of people want to travel. Like Michigan, there isn't a lot of travelers, but there's different people who want to look into these kind of transactions, is what I found out. So when talking to the people locally in your area, you want to talk to these buyers to see, yeah, I'd like to buy Airbnbs in this area because there's some new stuff coming up over here and it's causing this demand. Or you could potentially do this research on your own through Google or ChatGPT, asking specific creative questions that can help you understand the city you're about to do business in for your investor. If you go to Airbnb, you can see what's going on in the area for the current listings. If I wanted to convert my property to an Airbnb, it looks like there's a lot of Airbnbs in this area that have this kind of style of homes. But I think that there's a missing demand for creating this style of home for people to want to rent out, and it's still similar to these ones as in square footage, bed and bath, but mine is actually slightly better if I did this, but I have to invest this amount of money into furniture or getting a hot tub or pool or designing it properly, depending on what kind of attraction you want to pull in for your Airbnb. You're presenting that to your investor that they can set it up in a few different ways. And if they invest this amount of money, they could potentially get this amount of income. So you're gonna have to learn how to play around with these numbers. I use Airbnb as one of the sources to find the data. But I'd also look at different sources like AirDNA, DataRabu, which automatically pull the data from Airbnb and are doing automatic calculations for you to find the average daily rent. You can check the occupancy based on looking at the other listings and tracking how often are they getting stays, which is going to be very important because Airbnb does not provide the exact occupancy on every listing. You can go on there, you can see which ones are booked out for the next 6 months to see if that makes sense. This is going to provide you historical past data because they have a great built up system for us to use and make sure we're presenting it to our investors properly. Make sure you're utilizing Airbnb. You might not know which one you're losing 5, 10, 15,000 just because you thought this deal could only be a fix and flip and not a rental property. Whether it's a BRRRR or a turnkey property, every strategy needs to be taken into consideration. After I look at Airbnb, I'm looking at Furnish Finder and midterm rentals. With these strategies right here, it's pretty similar to Airbnb. But Airbnb is people with 7-day stays or 1-day stay or maybe like 2 weeks. But Furnish Finder and these midterm rental people are targeted towards longer term audiences, but not a year or more like a long-term rental in a Section 8. So with these strategies, you're gonna be able to actually get people in there for 30, 90 days from traveling nurses like who are moving into the area to do some certain jobs at a hospital, or there might be certain insurance relocations. So you can reach out to insurance companies. Certain families are dealing with fire or certain things wrong with their house like mold or different things that can happen in people's lives that the insurance covers getting them a new place to stay. The reason I'd use Furnish Finder is since all these listings are there, we can review all the listings in the radius of our property, see if it's near a hospital or certain amenities. If there's a huge population, there could be a good amount of demand to want to do this because there's so many nurses who are moving around to help other hospitals. It's just like Airbnb. You have to check the amenities. You got to check how long they've been listed, how many reviews they got. The only downfall is they don't have sites like AirDNA or DataRabu to get the occupancy and actual good info if this is a 100% good listing that we're looking at to compare it to our property. But we're using it as a good general idea to see, can our investor make money with this strategy? You have to find out how much are they going to have to invest to make it look like this other listing that you're looking at and how much those potential rents could be. So very similar but you need to actually be always looking into the actual location of the area and finding out the supply and demand between the travelers for Airbnb versus doing the nurses and insurance relocations to decide which one could potentially make you more money, because they're pretty similar ways of marketing properties and getting people to stay in them. We're also majorly looking into co-living for each investor that we work with in our wholesaling business. We have to look at what is the square footage of the home? What is the layout? How is the HOA looking? Because I need to be able to get multiple people living in one property. For the Airbnb, midterm rental, and the co-living strategy, you always got to check the HOA. There's going to be certain rental restrictions from the HOA for you not to be able to rent this property for 30 days, 90 days, a year at a time. So they're going to have certain minimums for you to actually have this property rented out. So if there's an HOA, you definitely can't do any of those strategies. If there isn't any, I would definitely consider doing co-living. It's one of the greatest ones right now. You're able to fit more people in the same amount of space. Let's take a 1,200 square foot home where you're able to add 150 square feet bedrooms, and you can fit 7 people in this, where you can get them all rented out in each unit. You could be getting $300 to $400 a month for 7 units, which could be way more than you just renting it out to one person for $1,200 to $1,500 a month. You're gonna have to look into how many walls do I need to divide to be able to fit this amount of people in a bedroom, have a closet, be able to have a shared space for kitchen, living room, being able to fit bathrooms in the right spots and everything being proper with plumbing, electrical, for everyone to be able to live in that small of a house with that many people. You have to have the right general contractor. You can use company referrals like Pad Split. They have experienced contractors who can help you with those jobs, or you can take their insight and opinions to find out how much you can get for the rents and use your own contractor, or you can find out how much the rents are through other websites like Facebook Marketplace, Zillow, Realtor.com, and finding other rent by the rooms in the area. Rent by the rooms could be really good for people who could be in college, people who are on low income housing and are just solo by themselves. So this is going to become a huge thing in the coming future as the economy is really shifting, where people need a place to live just on their own and not with an entire family. A lot of things in this world are becoming more expensive, so expect co-living to become a lot more popular here soon. These are the 5 key strategies that I'm using. I want to make sure you're utilizing them in your business. How I actually present these strategies to my investors is once I actually get a number on what I can rent this for, I'm evaluating the deal as detailed as possible. Let's say my investor is buying a house for $100,000 purchase price. Let's say they're getting a private money loan at 12% interest. And it took them, let's just say, a year to do. So 12 months, $12,000 in interest, and they put another $30,000 in work. So now they're all in at $142,000. They put their own cash in for that rehab right there. The ARV is $200,000. So they do a refinance with a 75 or 80%, let's say 80% loan to value. The refinance brings them to $160,000 is going to be remaining on this loan that they have. So with this $160,000, you need to look at what are the current interest rates in the market are. I'm going to give you guys a random number of, let's say, with taxes and insurance, your monthly payment is going to be $800 a month. Your actual rent is $1,200 a month. That is as a long-term rental, let's say. You're going to do something called capital expenditure, which could be property management, vacancy, maintenance, which you're going to be saving every month for your property whenever that rainy day comes and paying the people out that you're currently dealing with. Always saving that money as an investor, but not every investor will do that. Some might not track any capital expenditure because they do it all themselves. With people like that, they are possibly more generous on how much they might pay you, but you can lay it out as the rent's $1,200, your payment after rehabbing it's going to be $800 after also making $18,000 on a refinance. And you can break this all out for them and show, here is how you're going to make money on a BRRRR. Or like you could do the same thing on a sub 2 or seller finance as well. So what it's really going to come down to is you looked at the CapEx, you looked at the PITI rate, but each deal is also different in different ways, and each investor is different in each way. You might look at cash on cash return or cap rate. So with these things, they're very similar. Cash on cash return is, let's say this guy doesn't calculate any CapEx, so he's making $400 a month. So 400 times 12 is 4,800, I believe. Since he doesn't have a down payment in this deal, he's unlimited cash on cash return. But let's say he bought this deal on a creative finance deal, which is a more feasible way of looking at a cash on cash return, because you have to put your own down payment. But with a BRRRR, you didn't really have to. So let's say I got a $200,000 house, same situation, it's turnkey now. You're gonna put 10% down, $20,000 on this $200,000. The $4,800 in actual net profit each year is gonna be divided by $20,000. So $4,800 divided by $20,000 is probably like 25. That's gonna be the number you're looking at to see what your investor might pay. Now you know that this deal makes money. You can ask your investor, do they look at CapEx? All right, how much cash on cash return do you want on each deal? So let's say they don't look at CapEx and they told you want 12% cash on cash return. That means you could potentially sell the deal to him at $40,000 down if you can present it to him properly. You have to be able to map out the proper numbers to each investor, and it might be the same way you're looking at it for Section 8, Airbnb, midterm rental, or co-living. I'd love to go deeper with this more, and I want you to play around with it. Hopefully this video provided value. I created a free calculator for you to actually use these numbers and put them into action right here in the link below, where it's just a regular Google sheet where you can fill in this info and present it to your buyer so you can see how these numbers on this deal actually make sense. Hopefully this all provided value to you. Put these into action and keep doing deals.